Good evening, everybody. This is Dr. Mike Carberry with Advanced Medical Integration. Welcome to the AMI Daily Alert in the midst of the coronavirus epidemic or pandemic in our country. Hearing from a lot of different people on how they're surviving, how they're getting by, and how they're helping others during this crisis. So keep doing the good work. We are, we've lost some of our volume in our practice because of people, being afraid to go out and travel, but we're still seeing over 2/3 of our patient base in Chattanooga. And I'm hearing from a lot of our clients as well that they're still seeing a lot of patients. Taking some of the information we've given in these daily alerts, like the telemarketing or not telemarketing, but telemedicine, and also the marketing strategies we have to reach out to people and to help boost their immunity. Remember, there's two things you can do to help in your community. One is you could quarantine so you don't catch and spread the virus. But two, if you can actually get with people who don't have the virus, you can boost their immunity. And if you boost their immunity, they'll overcome this and build an natural immunization to it, so we can get through this crisis quicker and stop the spread of this virus. So we're going to talk about immune boosting in this segment. We're bringing back Dr. Brad Watts. Brad was with us at our summit a week and a half ago and was one of the most listened to segments of our summit. So let's welcome back Dr. Brad Watts. I'll give you a background on him. He has his BS in biology, and he also has a BS in kinesiology. He has his doctorate in chiropractic. He is a certified functional medicine practitioner, and he's a certified strength conditioning specialist. Brad, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
All right. Well, let's get down to it. I know you got some slides you want to show us. And we're going to cover some of the same stuff from a different angle and a little bit more detail on some of it. So that'll help answer some of the questions I've been getting from our listeners. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
All right, that sounds good. And as we go through this, some of this stuff, we're going to review what we talked about last time, as you mentioned. And the reason is that I got a ton of emails saying, well, what about this? What about that? Go a little deeper here. Okay. So I want to do that. And obviously you guys can have these slides, Dr. Carberry, as well. So I'll send those to you when we're done here. So anyway.
And make sure, because the most common question I've been getting is, where do I get the stuff he talked about? So make sure you give that pathway.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, all right. Well, I want to go through a couple of things here with you. On our last conversation, what we talked about was a 3-part approach that I think makes sense to most patients and is pretty easy to communicate to most patients. 3 things that you got to do every single day. You want to concentrate your immune forces. You want to make sure that you're not fighting 100 smaller battles at one time. Okay.
You gave us that analogy of World War II, where Hitler had to spread his army in so many different directions that he didn't have enough army to fight any specific force, and that's why he lost the war. So we don't want to do the same thing in our body.
That's right. We're going to dig in on this one a lot tonight. Number 2 was boost the intensity and longevity of an immune response. And we use nutrition to do that. I do at Biogenetics as a functional medicine provider as well. This is also the area where, I don't know if you've been watching that stock price of predictive biotech go up.
I have.
But this is why, is that human cell and tissue products are going to show to be a pretty effective measure, I think, in the coming 60 days. And so that's going to be
their stock significantly increased yesterday.
It did.
And with good reason.
It did. And then specifically also using nutrition, not just building blocks, but actually driving a systemic response, driving up the immune activity, just turning up the volume a little bit on those white blood cells. So we talked about that. We'll discuss that a little bit greater detail today, some of the pathways and how that works. The third thing that we discussed was this way that a virus will attach itself to a cell wall, and it covers itself in a film so that the body is unable to recognize a foreign invader. We want to bust those films up, and I gave you a couple of product ideas specifically for that. I did get word, if you listen to the first series of this last week with you, and you're looking at these recommendations here, there's a few missing, and it's because your group bought out those companies. Their whole stock was gone. So,
really? Wow.
Yes. And so,
well, I got to tell you, after you talked a week ago Friday about the film and how it cloaks itself, I was watching President Trump in his virtual town hall, and he had the Surgeon General and he had another doctor with him. And the other doctor started talking about the film that these viruses use to hide themselves. And I was like, now I know what she's talking about.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So when we look at marketing and reaching out to patients, your patients basically are not going to understand anything if you give them more than 3 things to latch onto. Mm-hmm. And specifically when it comes to a virus, there's so much fear around it. The media has done such a good job of freaking people out that their ability to remember even 3 things might be a little less than that. So
yeah. You know, and I'm not going to go off on a tangent about the media, but I just got to say the media, I'm very disappointed in them. MSNBC last week trying to draw out some big conspiracy on Trump. You know, I mean, like, do they not realize what's at stake here? I mean, our whole country is at stake. So I think it's time that we all just bond together and work for a similar cause. Let's keep people well. Let's keep them immune. Let's stop our bickering and fighting. And let's get this country back on track.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it has to happen. It has to happen. Like, one of the things that you're going to find, just to dovetail off of this real quick before we get into it, one of the things you're going to find is that the joy in healthcare has gone away, because no matter what you do, the media is going to report their side of the story on it. And like I mentioned the other day, if somebody gets something out of me being freaked out and in fear, right, meaning eyeballs on a TV screen and higher revenue for ratings, you got to be a little concerned about that. So anyway, just throwing that out there for you.
I totally understand what you're saying. It's almost like they're oblivious to what's going on.
Oh, that the joy is a big thing, especially as a healthcare provider. That's one of the things that allows you access to not just to people, but to people here, is your joy in what you're doing. And so don't lose that amidst all of this mess.
Absolutely. I can tell you with absolute certainty that at least 80% of every profession that I work with, medical, nursing, chiropractic, physical therapy, got into the profession because they genuinely wanted to help others. And, you know, chiropractic, I remember my first day at chiropractic school, and there was 150 people in the class, and the professor came in and said, how many people are here because they got injured and chiropractic helped them? And I would say 3/4 of the room stood up. So yeah, let's keep that joy in healthcare. Let's get people well, and let's be happy about what we're doing, and let's stop the fighting. So
that's right.
Yeah.
So when you're making these videos, Dr. Carberry, for your practice, when you're giving your patients 3 things to latch onto, I was talking with Dr. DePaul about this, right? Mm-hmm. Is make sure that there's some joy in your video coming across where you're telling them these 3 bullet points right here. This is where it's at. So anyway. All right, well, let's get into it a little bit. I want to give you a rundown of some immune system functions so you know what we're talking about without giving you too much PTSD from physiology, all right?
Okay,
so,
got it.
Can you see my cursor on the screen here?
Yes, I can.
Sure. All right. So this is a part of your immune system that we're going to talk about today, white blood cells that are called T helper cells. And T helper cells branch off into what we can consider to be kind of like a teeter-totter mechanism. You have one side of a teeter-totter balances out the other, okay? And what happens is, in a virus or a bacterial issue, some pathogen, when that shows up, we start forming a lot of this up here. It's called TH1, T helper cell 1. And this says here, primarily acute. It's because it's going to fight an acute illness.
That's right, the immediate crisis.
That's right. When that virus comes knocking on your door, you want TH1 activity to be like robust and ready to go and do something.
Right.
Right. You don't want it to be like, what? I'm tired.
That's your Mr. T, right? It's your Mr. T who's going to stand up and protect you when something's going wrong.
That's right. And that's where we're at right now. And I want to show you why everybody's immune systems are lacking the veracity that they need in order to defend themselves against something that's a novel virus like this. So when we have inflammation, we talked about inflammation previously from a lifestyle perspective, but if we can like boil it down into stressors, whether it be mechanical, chemical, or psychological stressors, right? Ring a bell there. Yeah. What happens is that your body begins to have an adaptation to that stressor. So something that starts out as an acute issue over time the immune system will stop fighting it as an acute issue. It understands who the enemy is, takes notes, and starts to enhance the immune response on other portions of what's going on. So you make antibodies to things, right?
Right.
Right. So the problem with the coronavirus is that there are not a lot of people that have made antibodies to it yet,
Right.
at least this version of it. And so what happens is we have this Th1 activity that gets upset in people, rightly so, and is trying to kill off a virus, yet it has not taken and translated its information down here to what we call Th2. And you see, this is where antibodies are synthesized for the most part.
Right.
Okay? So if you're an immunologist or a virologist or somebody, I apologize for bastardizing your entire profession to one slide, but just go with me on this for a second, okay?
Well, it's got to be easy enough for people to grasp it, right?
That's right. So Th1 and Th2 are in balance. You have inflammation, and then you have antibodies on the other side of that. The antibody response is what we want to get to. This is what science is trying to figure out right now for all of the different vaccines and all the stuff. They're using people's serum to try to treat patients, and it's wild. And the reason that you're going to be a year out on the vaccine list is because it takes time to develop antibodies.
Yeah.
Right? It takes time. And so now what's happening is the health of the Th1 immune system in these infected patients is failing miserably at about a 4.5% rate across the country right now. Miserable failure.
So 4.5%. Go ahead.
I was going to say, in Italy, they're failing at about an 8.5% rate with the death rate right now.
Right. Is our death rate at 4.5% right now?
I read it this morning, and that's where it was at.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that as they do more and more tests, which we just had a launch of a bunch of tests last week, we should see that death rate come down, correct?
I'm talking our death rate in the United States is only 1.2 to 1.4%, but overall, worldwide,
I got it.
At 4.5 right now.
4.5. Okay, got it.
Yeah. Yep. So what we want to do is we want to be able to understand, why does this Th1 activity, why is this so poor right now? And is there something we can do about it? So if we look at this as like a paycheck over here, okay,
Yep.
we got a T helper 0. That means it's a progenitor cell, like a stem cell. It has the opportunity to turn into any one of these 4 that you see off to the right. Okay?
I got it. Yep.
And so if you only have a certain amount of these Th0 cells, if you have a budget, as it were, and you start spending that budget on trying to put out the inflammation associated with your lifestyle, that means when something else shows up, you don't have these novel T helper cells available to develop into that Th1 response. It's not there. Your bank account's running low with that in mind. Okay?
So every time you have inflammation, you're depleting this bank.
That's right. And so look at the Th17 underneath Th1 right there. This is where we turn something that's acute into a chronic inflammatory response issue.
I got it.
So one of the things that we were talking about before we went on camera here was that right now the CDC is recommending that you avoid using anti-inflammatory medications.
Right.
Why?
The World Health Center said that the worst thing you could take would be like an Advil.
Right. How come?
Because you're gonna stop the healing response.
That's right. And actually, we're cutting it off right here. Th1 and Th17. We stop funding these with anti-inflammatories, right? And this is your first line of defense. So basically what you're doing is you're getting rid of the pain associated with some inflammatory issue, only allowing you're suppressing your immune system function. That virus comes knocking, and all of a sudden you're in a world of hurt, a big world of hurt.
Right. I remember I had a surgeon tell me that they call anti-inflammatories stop the healing drug.
That's right. That's right. So a healthy inflammatory response is awesome when it's directed appropriately and when it's controlled. An inflammatory response that moves from this Th1 activity into this Th17 activity, or even into Th2 over time, is a problem. Imagine this, Dr. Carberry. You have somebody that they're predisposed to making antibodies to food. right? Let's say that they start drinking milk and their body's making antibodies to milk, but not just a little bit, like 20 years. Let's say they're doing it for 20 years.
Right.
Every day they wake up and they're pounding that milk and, calcium and all the stuff, vitamin D. And what's happening is they have caused an acute phase inflammatory reaction with TH1, right? That has now gone to TH17. So there's a slow burn all the time, this inflammation issue, constantly inflamed. And people go, oh, I have this postnasal drip situation. You have food allergies, right? And what's happening is this chronic inflammatory situation starts to recruit TH2 now. And now I make antibodies to it, right? So now I have both sides of my immune system teeter-totter that are supposed to be balancing. I have both sides of those ramped up, and they are fighting something that it shouldn't have to, milk. Right now, virus comes along, and my immune system's preoccupied with milk because I like it on my Cheerios or whatever. Right. And it's a crazy situation. But remember, you only have so many TH0 cells to go around. There's only so many of them. If you're spending them on something silly like milk,
right.
It's a problem, okay?
Or pizza.
Yeah, that's right. And so here's what happens though. What do? You take allergy medication. What are you doing when you're taking medication to like open up those airways and suppress the inflammatory response? All we're doing is blocking this TH1 and 17 effect. And you go, oh, thank God I can breathe. I'm thirsty. Where's my milk? Right?
Right.
And it's crazy. It's crazy. So that in a nutshell is happening 100, 500, maybe 1,000 times in your lifestyle on a daily basis. Maybe it's not to food. Maybe it's to the clothing you're wearing or to your laundry detergent. Right? Maybe it's to the air you're breathing. Maybe there's mold in your walls and you have no idea. It starts to get a little hairy, okay?
So why would, like, for example, some people have sensitive skin and they react very quickly to things like this. Why would that be?
So what happens is oftentimes you'll have a fast-acting response with a TH1 activity. And some people have a slow TH1 activity, but they'll make antibodies to almost anything, right? They'll have a strong TH2 response. So people that have an anaphylaxis reaction, it's a quick, lightning fast immune reaction that takes place. And oftentimes, like with milk, or peanuts, that's even a better one, right? When did peanuts become like a bioterrorism weapon in school?
Yeah, because when I was a kid, which was like a million years ago, nobody ever had a reaction to peanuts.
That's right.
Why is that?
So, and what's happening is an anaphylaxis situation. So in the immune system, we have, you ever heard of IgG, IgA, IgE?
Yep.
IgE is an actual immune-mediated allergy. And when those allergies have a swift response, those patients, they have like anaphylaxis takes place really, right? For most of the world, they're dealing with IgG and IgA-mediated responses. So they go, well, I'm not allergic to peanuts, so I'm going to eat them. Even though they're driving this situation, it's just not anaphylaxis. Okay?
Right.
All right. So in this instance, what I want to do is I want to show you how your patients are going from basically a healthy, normal function into massive immune dysregulation. They show up in your office with the signs and symptoms of immune dysregulation, but nobody's ever told you that's what it is. And so I want to show you that life cycle here just briefly. But at the very bottom, you have the standard American diet. So don't think about your healthy chiropractic population. Think about your patients. Think about the ones that where they go to Burger King or McDonald's, right? It doesn't have to be often. Like, well, I don't go that much. It's just, 2 or 3 times a week. And to you, you would go, oh, good Lord, 2 or 3 times a week. That's a lot. But to them, it's not as much as their brother, right?
Right.
And so what happens is they're doing what's normal, even though what's normal is not necessarily compatible with their DNA. And that's a huge distinction to make there, okay? So over time, living this lifestyle that's not compatible with human DNA, I think, appropriately, I could say that, people start to have an abundance of energy intake. And that abundance of energy intake, they start to store energy. They start to become overweight, and we get a little bit on the belly, Maybe we get a little bit in the neck, that type of thing. But really what's happening is we're basically storing calories for a rainy day. And you're storing calories because your body can't detox. So when you breathe in oxygen, you eat food, you mash the two together and you get ATP energy, right? That happens in the mitochondria.
Right.
And then you exhale CO2. That CO2, right? That CO2 is the byproduct of energy transfer from glucose and oxygen into ATP. Another byproduct of that energy transfer is called reactive oxygen species. And that's what I have here in the second from the bottom, ROS cleanup. Another way to put it, that would be oxidative stress or free radical damage.
Right.
If you can't clean up oxidative stress and free radical damage, that leads to cell death. That's inflammation. This is where neurogenic inflammation comes from. Your patient that walks into the practice with sciatica, your patient that walks into the practice with diffuse pain syndromes or fibromyalgia, that type of stuff. This is what's happening, is they can't clean up oxidative stress, okay? So when this takes place, the neurons begin, specifically in that instance, the neuron begins to become overwhelmed with reactive oxygen species, and it breaks down from the inside out. It's called apoptosis. That cell dies. Right? That cell throws in the towel. Okay? Now imagine that's not happening in a nerve. Imagine that's happening in the liver. Right? What if that's happening in the spleen? That would be even worse. What if that's happening in your heart, right? Your kidneys. You start to see how patients show up with chronic disease. Now, what that leads to is an out of balance inflammatory response. Now, that inflammation situation, that Th1 and Th17 that I showed you back here, now that is way out of control, and it leads to immune dysregulation. So you went from a normal, healthy immune system into the standard American lifestyle to my body's on fire pretty quickly.
Right. Okay.
The problem is that most providers have never been taught how to identify immune system dysregulation, because we've been taught how to identify a hot L5 disc. We've been taught how to identify diffuse pain syndromes and just leave the rest of it up to the medical doctors. They have it under control. Okay.
Right.
It's not happening. If you've been watching TV at all for the last few weeks, you know it's not happening. And the reason it's not happening is because this yellow arrow I showed you is lifestyle medicine, and medicine in the United States has said no to this. They've said, don't worry about it. We'll just figure out a drug that helps us reach in and break the cycle wherever we find ourselves in here. Or maybe it's in step 2 to 3. And that's this drug for a chronic disease situation is messing people up. And this is why we have this immune dysregulation. So now you have 300 million people in the United States that you're telling them to stay home because 1,000 people have died, because you know, as a public health care or a public health physician, right, in charge of looking at the numbers and telling the government what to do, they know what's possible because they understand this yellow arrow. They understand the situation, and their best thing that they can do is to tell you, better not get sick, you better stay home, right? We've as a country, and basically as healthcare, we've spent so much attention and energy on developing a cure for the illness rather than understanding how to boost what you already have, that innate immune system that you're born with, because that's what that Th1 actually is your innate. Okay, so does that make sense so far?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so here's your standard American lifestyle, right? This, if you can look at this picture and you can see this as a foreign invader the same way that you look at coronavirus, you're gonna change your life, and you're gonna change the life of the people in your community, because it's not that a cheeseburger is bad, okay? It's not that the sausage is bad or an onion ring is bad. It's that an event you can tolerate. When it becomes a process, you get run over by your own lifestyle. Same thing with this. If you take a gallon of seawater, I heard this the other day, I was reading a stat on this, a gallon of seawater, it has more viruses in that gallon of seawater than you're gonna come up against in your lifetime from like an immune regulation response issue here, okay?
Really?
In a gallon of seawater, this is amazing, okay?
Yeah.
You're not afraid to go jump in Clearwater Beach right now in the water, right? You're not afraid of it, okay? Or if you're on the Pacific, wherever you are, right?
Right, I'm on the Pacific. But I
You're not,
understand what you're saying.
you're not afraid of that. And the reason you're not afraid of it is because nobody ever told you that there's viruses in the water. They haven't
No,
spent
that's the first I ever heard of it.
they haven't spent 24/7 in the news media trying to get you in fear, right? And then stay inside. And it's crazy, right? So we're doing it to save the population that's been living like this.
Right.
That's why you're staying inside right now. So when your immune system is spending its attention on the pretzel and the cheeseburger and the hoagie, right, instead of like autophagy and making sure your skin is tight and plump and healthy, right? This is
Right.
where we're at right now. So standard American lifestyle. And again, I like pizza, I like burgers, right? But they have to be an event. They can't be a process.
And that's a good way to put it, because my wife and I do try to live that way.
Yeah.
Maybe those events are a little bit more than we should have, but it's definitely not a process.
That's right.
As you were talking, I was very proud. I heard my daughter talking to somebody recently, and they were asking her about, do you ever eat this thing at McDonald's? And my daughter said, I've never been to McDonald's. And I was like, yeah, I guess she's right. So we're proud of that.
That's so funny. So funny. So I have three little kids, and two of them think McDonald's is like the holy grail of restaurants because they never get to go. Right.
Oh.
And so, but you get a toy. And so the other day I saw a McDonald's toy in my wife's car, and she goes, I just drove through, bought a Happy Meal, got the toy, and threw the food. It's like, I go, it's called Target. All right. Anyway.
Right.
We have the next slide here. I want to tell you about how this inflammatory cascade gets started with your lifestyle. So you're eating food that's not an event, it's a process, right? So you think about the person that has to come home and have the same beverages every day, right? I won't pick on a brand, but we'll just say they got to have a beer every night to take the edge off, right? Whatever it might be. What happens is you are basically a living representation of your gut bacteria right now. And that sounds really weird. I heard one doctor say, you're basically a meat puppet for your gut bacteria. Okay.
Say that one again. You're basically a what?
A meat puppet for your gut bacteria. Your gut bacteria, they determine the expression of your DNA in a moment by moment basis. It's amazing. Okay.
Right.
It's amazing. And so I want to go to the gut bacteria real quick because they produce these little things called LPS, lipopolysaccharides. Okay. Lipopolysaccharides are produced by normal gut bacteria. Everybody has this, okay? So this is not something gross and weird, right? Everybody's got this. Lipopolysaccharides, activate something in a macrophage called a toll-like receptor. It's like a light switch. So these lipopolysaccharides are being produced by your gut bacteria consistently. When you live the standard American lifestyle and you take in a large amount of saturated fat, trashy food that you're not supposed to be eating a lot of, these lipopolysaccharides, instead of producing tiny little lipopolysaccharides, you start making like balloon-sized lipopolysaccharides, like big nasty ones, okay? The big nasty is coming after you now. And so these create something called leaky gut. You ever heard of leaky gut syndrome?
Yes.
Right. What happens in leaky gut syndrome is now lipopolysaccharides that are supposed to be in your intestines cross the bloodstream. They cross that gut barrier into the bloodstream, and they go systemic, right? Total body. So now you have something that is supposed to be in your belly, cruising around in your bloodstream. Your body does not like that. So lipopolysaccharides in your bloodstream trigger these light switches called toll-like receptors. Remember what a macrophage is? It's like a vacuum that gets in there and cleans up debris and phagocytosis and takes all that crap and gets rid of it. Toll-like receptors get triggered, okay? And we have this intermediary chemical called TNF-alpha. TNF-alpha triggers on the outside of a cell. You have all these little receptors. TNF-alpha now, so you're like 3 layers in. TNF-alpha triggers on the outside of a cell something that says, hey, cell, time for you to get angry. You're about to get attacked by something, okay? You can see that here. I can find my cursor real quick. Here we go. TNF-alpha triggering a receptor on the outside of the cell membrane that sends a signal into the cytoplasm of the cell, and we have this thing called NF-kappa beta. NF-kappa beta is like the match that lights the cell that says time to get angry, time to get all Th1 inflamed, time for you to get ticked off. Okay. Now,
Yep.
this happens in an infection. Like if you've ever cut your hand, you got an infection and it turned red or something like that.
Yep.
That's what's happening there. Is TNF alpha is telling NF kappa beta to get irritated. Okay. That's supposed to happen in an infection. But because people are living the standard American lifestyle here, all of this garbage is triggering lipopolysaccharides to end up in your bloodstream that causes this inflammatory response. So now something that's reserved for infection or injury is happening because of your pizza, because of your Miller Lite, okay? Or sorry, because of your beer.
Right.
And that's what's happening here. So do you see that cascade?
So you're actually getting molecules which are too big for your bloodstream to cross out of your gut into your bloodstream. And so the gut is considered technically outside the human body.
That's right.
Most patients don't think that way. But when things get into your bloodstream, now it's in your human body. So you don't want these things in your body.
That's right. That's
Got
right.
it.
So I'm going to freak you out now. Okay.
Okay.
Here's the freak out situation. When we look at how that NF kappa beta, what is it doing? It is stimulating Th1 activity. Okay. Stimulating Th1 activity. If that consistently happens over time, you go to the doctor and you're like, doctor, I think I have like leaky gut. I think I have joint pain. My knees are disintegrating in front of me. I can't walk anymore. And you go to the doctor and the doctor's like, all right, well, I think you're a candidate for something that we call human cell and tissue products now. Okay. And what's happening is inflammation is destroying tissues that you use the most, like your gut, and weight-bearing tissues, like your meniscus.
Right.
Okay? And so you know as well as I do, talking with Doc at Predictive in the lab, right, that when you put human cell and tissue product into the body, it's going to go wherever there's inflammation.
Yep.
Very rarely will it stay localized. Very rarely. Okay? This is key. This is what's happening. Now, your NF kappa beta has been lit on fire total body because your bloodstream is carrying these lipopolysaccharides all over the place. Okay? This is driving your Th1 activity. Over time, that starts to push Th17, chronic immune stress, chronic inflammation. I want you to, this is just a citation for anybody that wants to go and read this stuff on their own, all right? But this is NF kappa beta to Th1 differentiation, okay? All right, this is the freak out part. 50% of the United States population has full-blown metabolic endotoxemia. What that means is you have too many lipopolysaccharides in your bloodstream, and it's causing cell, right? 50% of the US population. This is why your integrated practices, doctor, have a patient base that are calling for integrated solutions like human cell and tissue product. This is why people need an immune boost, because their 50% of the US population has endotoxemia. That's like an infection, but from something your body produced.
Right.
Right? That's
so
crazy.
This is probably why when we were talking with Dr. Doug Schmidt, he's the chief scientist at Predictive Technologies, and he was asked, when you're using human cell and tissue products and you're putting this type of tissue in somebody's body, what is the chance, what is the biggest influence as to this being a successful thing? And he thought about it for a minute, and he said, probably what you've been putting in your gut prior to getting the stem cell injection. That's what his answer was. So this perfectly matches with what you're saying.
That's right.
Diet is everything.
That's right.
You are what you eat.
You are eventually, you are what you eat. So when we look at lipopolysaccharides, think about it in different terms. If this was a virus that was being produced by something in your gut, you would not tolerate that. You would be to the doctor immediately and be like, figure this out. Show me what to do. Figure this out. But since this is normal, quote unquote, normal in the United States, what we're doing is we are spending our Th1 activity on this lipopolysaccharide problem. And there's not a lot left now when that big bad virus comes knocking on the door. There's not a lot of room left.
This is what's going to result in whether you're going to have immune resistance or not, whether you're going to have a mild case or a severe case, whether you're going to be falling victim to this or not. And it's exactly what you're talking about right here.
That's right.
Yeah.
So this is huge right now. Okay.
Yep.
So lipopolysaccharides are made by the gut bacteria, obviously, and then endotoxemia. So this I don't want to call it an infection, but there's overwhelming amount of lipopolysaccharides cruising through your body right now are non-genetic and they're not acute, right? It means it's not injury or infection related. That means it's lifestyle related, and that's why medicine doesn't have an answer for it. This is key. This is key. This is what's happening, right? This is, I borrowed this picture from Elon Musk. This is his flamethrower. And yep. And so what's happening right now, and the reason we're all staying inside is because the government knows that people have been using their lifestyle based off of what the recommendations have been like for the last 25 years. We're just lighting our physiology on fire because it's good for business. And you know that as well as I do. In a chronic disease model, nobody gets well if you know, no, excuse me, your business doesn't stick around if people get well. And that's rough living. That's rough living, you know?
It's a shame because, you know, if you have a healthcare system that is based on that, let's just treat everything as it shows up acutely. Eventually, you're going to weaken your immune system so much that one thing's going to come along and just cause a great epidemic like we're seeing right now. So this was just a matter of time anyway, whether it's manufactured by the Chinese or whether it's a natural thing from eating bats, you know, who knows? It was just a matter of time.
And it's wild. It's something that every single person on the planet has going on in them. This picture right in front of you here. But nobody has spent the time to sort it out because they think that how they feel is normal. And they don't remember what it feels like to have some vitality and vibrancy apart from coffee or Red Bull, right? They don't understand what it's like to have a normal like feeling in their belly after they eat. They don't understand what it's like to have inflammation low enough that they can wake up and be like, my face doesn't feel puffy, my joints don't hurt, I feel amazing.
Yeah.
People don't know what that's like.
One of my employees asked me in my clinic the other day, I was explaining this to him, and they said, what's the chances of living a lifestyle, you know, where somebody has a lifestyle where this isn't going to be an issue? And I said, you probably wouldn't be living in the United States. and she was a little offended by it because she puts an awful lot into, they grow a lot of their own food, they eat well. And I said, if you're doing all that, then you might be an exception to the rule, but you really have to work hard because our whole system is set up to not handle this. It actually inspires this type of reckless lifestyle.
I mean, it definitely does. It fosters it. You wouldn't have a job without it. I wouldn't have a job without it. And so it's an interesting business model, which is, I want you to get well so that you don't have to come back to me, except if you want to know where like more toilet paper and bananas are, right? Like, that's so that's what you're looking for. So what happens then in this overview, once again, back to our yellow line here, is because the standard American lifestyle, we start moving up this arrow, we start moving up the life cycle, and the mess begins to happen as lipopolysaccharides light on fire our physiology. Sorry, I hit back one step. Here we go. This is the PTSD slide, all right? So here's what we're looking at. This is a mitochondria. Remember these from back physiology,
powerhouse of the cell.
Yep. And what's interesting is 20% of your body weight is made up of these little buggers.
Really?
20%. Yeah, you have a truckload of these, right? And on the left-hand side, you see a normal, healthy mitochondria. This is like my little boy who just learned to walk this week during quarantine, 11 months old. This is what his mitochondria look like. And I can tell because his face looks like this, right? Nice and smooth lines. He doesn't have any wrinkles, none of that stuff, right? And he breathes in oxygen. He eats a little food. He mashes the two together, and he creates a large amount of ATP here, as you can see in the green.
Right.
Large amount. And then he has a little bit of this, though. This is the free radical damage. This is the reactive oxygen species I mentioned on that yellow arrow previously. Just a little bit.
Yep.
And your body cleans that up. It's what you use glutathione for, vitamin C, resveratrol, all the things that you find in your Myers cocktail, all of that, right? You vacuum up these free radicals, and that's what's maintaining health. But over time, and the standard American lifestyle. This shouldn't really say time. It should say standard American lifestyle right here. And what happens is these mitochondria become dilapidated. They break down. They get wrinkly, right? They get wrinkly. And so patients will be like, well, how do you know mine look like that? And you just look at their face, okay? If they have wrinkles showing up on their face, they have mitochondrial damage, right? 100%, 100%, right? This is critical here, because now they breathe in oxygen, they eat food, they mash the two together. They're producing a small and a truckload of free radical damage, as you see here. Okay,
a small amount of ATP and a truckload of free radicals. That's not a good recipe.
No, that's the opposite ratio that you want. This is why the coronavirus is so dangerous for people that have diabetes. Right here, right. This in that red circle, that's basically diabetes in a nutshell. Okay, and that's what's happening as people age. In general, that's what's happening to these people, is that their ability to clean up free radical damage has gone downhill drastically. What's happening is their energy intake versus their ability to clean up reactive oxygen species, all of those free radicals, has flipped. They're no longer producing a ton of energy and a little bit of ROS. They're producing a lot of ROS and a little bit of energy, and then walking into your office and going, I don't feel well, my body's falling apart, give me some of your stuff. Okay?
Right.
Patient seeing 100% of the time. These are the patients that you're seeing. Now, when we have an overwhelming amount of this, it's easy to see in somebody that has diabetes. You get cell death. Cells begin to die. Tissues break down. The liver waves bye-bye. The kidneys wave bye-bye. Right? The nervous system starts to decline. It starts to retract and starts to pull itself away from normal function. And so the patient ends up with cognitive decline. Now, the other thing they end up with is a constant drippy nose. The other thing they end up with is pitting edema. The other thing they end up with, fill in the blank, whatever your favorite inflammatory symptom looks like. Okay? The big one is heart disease, because it's an inflammatory problem you can't see. Right? Huge. Huge.
Right.
And so these patients are the ones that are at risk with COVID-19, because they have spent the last 20 years, 40 years funding and fighting these same battles. They fund it, they fight it. They fund it, they fight it. And their immune system is exhausted. Their immune system is now Hitler's forces, right? Sitting there fighting on 3 different battlefronts, trying to figure out which is the most important. Okay? So this is a huge situation, though. And when we look at this type of a spot, we want to make sure that we understand, in order for you to have any TH1 activity, vacuum up reactive oxygen species like a dust buster. Get some antioxidants in there. The stuff that I told you about last week, glutathione, vitamin C, the reason it boosts your immune system, even the human cell and tissue product, the reason it boosts your immune system is because it dampens the amount of those reactive oxygen species that are being produced. It's amazing when this changes here. A runaway cursor there. When this changes, right, it's amazing how much better people feel. Like the lights turn on and they go, I have energy again. I feel normal, right? Because your body's spending blood sugar the way it's supposed to. We're cleaning things up. So
this is well, you're going to talk about this now, I guess.
Yeah.
With your products, do you have any products with you or no?
Yeah, I can not with me in house here. They're in the kitchen,
Okay.
But I have a couple on paper here, and I just want you to reach out to Zeb for this stuff, because if your patient literally, here's what it boils down to: eat meat and vegetables, nuts and seeds, and a little fruit. That would be like a paleo style diet, or right, ketogenic. If your patient can't tolerate that, or you don't have bandwidth in order to like have that style of intervention with your patient, you still have to be able to help them, right? You still got to be able to boost their immune system. One of the things that we talked about previously were the antioxidants, and those here with glutathione, vitamin C, B12 boost natural killer cells, which are part of that immune response, and D. We talked about this stuff. But
now we did mention the quantities of like say vitamin C. You said in that study in China to combat the coronavirus, they were not giving like milligrams of vitamin C, they were giving grams. And the problem with that orally is if you get over 1,500 grams, you have a reaction in your gut that says, we have plenty, so let's dump this, and now you end up with diarrhea.
Yeah, massive.
Right.
Massive.
So to get grams, like 6 to 12 grams is what you said they were using, right?
Yep.
You had to resort to IV, or if you're doing a prophylactic IV boost, to get over that 1,500 threshold that your gut tolerates, you have to get them into the bloodstream, which is why you're talking about products that are liposomal. So
that's right.
Why don't you explain to everybody so they understand what that is? Because some of the guys were telling me it was a new concept to them.
Absolutely. So liposomes are basically cell membrane. And it's what every cell of your body is made out of, cell membrane, right? Remember the lipid bilayers and stuff from physiology?
Yes.
You have the part that likes water and the part that does not like water, hydrophilic, hydrophobic.
Yep.
Well, if we can take those and inject essentially nutrient like vitamin C to the inside of them, those will passively cross membrane barriers into the bloodstream so that the absorption rates go up way above 80%, right? Some of them are like B12, et cetera. You can get up above 90% absorption rate. Whereas like if you take vitamin C in a powder or a capsule, you're going to get less than 40%. And that's up to that shutoff mechanism where the body says, I'm not going to absorb anymore. Like, we got to go.
I got it.
So these bubbles though are called liposomes. And a liposomal delivery system does not rely on digestion in order to absorb. You put it in your mouth, you can put it on your skin even, and it'll start to absorb into the bloodstream through those membrane barriers. The easiest is the mouth because they're really thin, and that's what your mouth is designed for. But bypasses the gut so that we don't spend it all on gut health, and we don't spend it all getting destroyed by all the enzymes in your belly.
1 second. Okay, so we just took a quick break because I wanted to grab some of the products. Brad's in Minnesota, I'm in Oregon. He has his products at his house. I have my products at this house. These are what I'm using personally based on his recommendations to keep my immune defenses up. And I'll tell you what else we've done with these as well. But let's go through these, Brad, because you're just about to start talking about some of these products.
Yeah.
So why don't you go ahead and explain them, and I'll hold them up and show you as you do.
All right. So these are all liposomal delivery products that Dr. Carberry has. And the first one that we'll talk about is glutathione, GSH. That's going to show you, but my bottle's empty here. so you have it there. Yep. And so what this is glutathione. Yep.
And we keep it refrigerated, right?
That's right. That's right. So we keep it refrigerated.
It's easy to deliver. You just read the directions. I think this one's 2 pumps. So under the tongue, 2 pumps, boom, boom. And you hold it for 30 seconds, although I always do it for like 90 seconds.
That's right.
Does that matter?
And what happens is the more time that you hold it against the mucous membranes, like against your cheek or under your tongue, whatever it might be, the more of it that actually starts to absorb right into the bloodstream. Just like a transfer like that. And that's really what we're looking for. So that liposome just melds with the tissue membrane and deposits that stuff right into the bloodstream. Is pretty awesome.
Yeah. So that's the GAP or the glutathione. And you mentioned earlier. Yeah. Okay. What else do you want me to show?
Vitamin C with RLA in it. That's this one. Yeah, you got it right there too. So vitamin C with R-lipoic acid, that's antioxidant. Obviously, we talk about the immune system and vitamin C. The immune system's only going to run as far as vitamin C will take it. And that's why in China, the study, they're giving people 6 to 12 grams with a G, grams of this stuff. That's a lot. Because this is in a liposome, though, we don't have to dose 6 to 12. Think about an IV therapy. You have 100% absorption rate into the bloodstream, right? You're just dropping it right in. But you don't have 100% cellular uptake. So they would dose it throughout the day, every hour, because what was happening is your kidneys will clear it out. Well, we want to have a massive cellular uptake. I don't just want vitamin C to get into my bloodstream. I want it to like get wedged into the cells appropriately. And that's what the liposome.
That requires liposomal delivery as well.
That's what they let us do. We get higher cellular yields. So specifically with glutathione, the cellular yields, the uptake is 100-fold over IV exposure. So that's pretty amazing. Yeah.
So the nice thing you told me about both of these things is if I want to get 2 to 3 grams, which should be enough to give me a better immune system, right? A better defense against this. I do 4 pumps 3 times a day. That's
Yep.
for the vitamin C.
Yep. So that would be, yeah. So you get 500 milligrams for every 4 pumps of the vitamin C. And remember, this is an intense uptake. So you don't need 6 grams.
Right.
Like, you can take it if you want it, but I'm just saying you don't need it.
And the glutathione, you told me 2 pumps 3 times a day should do it.
That's right. That's right. And so what you're doing, though, doctor, what you're doing, right, is you are sucking up all of this red stuff here. That's what those 2 are doing, is we're this reactive oxygen species and this trash, so that your body has room to create more energy, right? Room to be able to make more ATP appropriately, and basically chill out the immune system. So with that, we also use resveratrol in some instances, and you take resveratrol, I know.
Yep.
There you go. Liposomal format as well. And B12. B12 is something that we use for those patients that don't have access to B12 shots, like maybe they're shut in, but they still need to boost their natural killer cell activity.
Right.
We're going to send them B12 as part of our kit. And so anyway, we leave that in there.
Okay.
Those are the things that we're doing to enhance and boost that immune system response, that one activity. Remember, if we want to get into this THO, so these novel cells here that have the ability to branch into these 4, if we want to give these an opportunity to, have more of them to spend on TH1 production, we have to be able to concentrate the immune forces. That's what we're doing. Instead of building the lower half, we want to build the upper half of that chart. How we do that is by stopping lipopolysaccharides. Your patients can either have a massive life overhaul, which most of them are not willing to do, especially under house arrest.
Right.
But the way that we do that is I'm going to give them a binder, something like this. It's called Binder Pro, which is a blend of different binders, specifically charcoal, clays, etc., zeolite, that have been shown in the medical literature to capture lipopolysaccharides so that they go out in the stool rather than being absorbed into the belly, right? Rather than being absorbed through that into the enteric, basically the bloodstream, right?
Yep.
So we want to make sure that that happens. Pro is something I have my patients use at night before they go to bed. It's the last thing they do. So they get a solid 8 hours of this stuff capturing all of those lipopolysaccharides. They wake up in the morning and have a smooth bowel movement and move on.
Yeah.
So that's one step to calming down that lipopolysaccharide situation. Another step is a multivitamin that's in this the liposomal delivery system. It's called Multi Plus. And Multi Plus is basically a way for your patients to use a tiny bit of multivitamin and have a massive response, because the absorption rates are, again, so high compared to... I
also have that in my refrigerator as well. I just forgot to grab it.
Yeah. So last one on here, as far as concentrating the immune system, if I'm talking to you chiropractors out there, you got to be good leaders. You got to be good leaders, right? Anybody that's going to sit there on the other side of a desk and show somebody how to heal, you buy your own product, right? You got to buy your own product. And, and it's amazing. So one of the things that I tell these doctors, in your integrated space, Dr. Carberry, is don't shop for deals in your own marketplace. And they always go, why? They go, because all you're going to attract are patients that are shopping deals at your storefront. Right.
That's right.
And you gotta, if you're gonna sell something, you gotta pay that retail for it. And so I'm telling you, use your own product. Go get your human cell and tissue product stuff moving in the right direction. Exercise, eat well, right? If you're sitting on the McDonald's lifestyle and your patients are like, how do I stop this from happening? And you go, stop eating McDonald's, as they're looking at the cup in your trash can right next to you. It's like, it ain't gonna happen.
It's a true story. When my father was dying of cancer, I remember the doctor came in and was talking to my whole family, and my brother said, doctor, I have a question. He was a really heavy smoker for 45 years. Could that have anything to do with this? And the doctor started coughing as he said no, and his cigarettes flew out of his pocket. It was like, was that actually Saturday Night Live, or was that real? I mean, it was that kind of moment.
That's right. Is this happening right now?
But you have to live your lifestyle. I'll tell you one thing I did more, and I know you're going to talk about this one in a minute, the biocidin, because and I don't want to steal thunder, but
No.
this is a really potent way, in combination with what you told us, to stay stronger with your immune system. So what I did was I bought all this for my staff, because my staff are treating patients. Now we're taking temperatures every morning of patients and staff. If they have a fever, we send them home. We haven't really, I think we had one person have a fever and we sent them home. But we're giving my staff, we let them use this stuff. We're buying it for them. It costs me some money to do it, but I'm protecting my staff. I'm investing in my staff. I don't want them to get sick. I want their immune system to be as strong as possible in case they come across somebody who has this. So something to think about.
Absolutely. And the one that you just mentioned, biocidin LSF, it's not a biogenetics product. However, the scientists that own the technology behind the liposomal delivery system that we use have coordinated to create this product. They sell it at biocidin.com, and it's an amazing immune stimulant, right? Not only does it stimulate that Th1 activity, but also it is something that is a film buster. And when those viruses of all kinds, even Lyme disease, they start to cloak themselves in those films to basically hide from your immune system, this is something that will support your body's ability to uncover that. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, we bought this. You got us turned on to this about last year. And anytime somebody in our household gets feeling ill, in any of our households, because we live on both coasts, we use this. We have them use it, and it's amazing. My daughter, we came back from Florida, and my daughter and our housekeeper here were very sick, to the point where we were very concerned, and we put them on this, and within 24 hours they were turned around. It was amazing.
It is. It's amazing what happens when you actually work with that innate immune system, as opposed to tolerating it. It's amazing. Right. It's amazing.
So that's the biocidin we're talking about underneath film busters. The laurocidin, I'm using a thing called monocidin or monolaurin.
Yeah, it's a monolaurin product. This is just a company that I appreciate. I've used them for a decade, and patients, and I think they're a cool company.
And that's made from, am I correct when I say mother's milk?
This product specifically is a derivative of coconut.
Oh, this one. Okay, the monolaurin.
Yep. So, but the one that they can source it from different places as far as how they distill it and mix it with. But this one specifically is going to be from a coconut.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing.
So here, just to recap real quick, Doctor, I'm one guy, you're one guy, but you got these people that are serving communities, right? And they're the voice in their community. And something I've seen work amazingly well right now is when you get behind the camera and you grab it. And it doesn't even have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be on a tripod like this. When you get behind the camera and you do your video just live like this, right? What that does, and you give your patients a 3-step process to boosting their immune system, and you just give them a little love. What the equity that builds in your patient base and in your community is amazing, and it's understandable, and it's not coming from a news reporter that's trying to freak them out.
Exactly. We have enough of that. We can use some more of this. So this is a great recipe you've given us. How do they get a hold of you if they're interested in getting any of these products?
Zeb Sims is the guy. He is one of the directors at Biogenetics, and he's the one that can take you from introduction to getting everything organized. If you want to watch full-on presentations on the technology or any of the other kits, solutions, that type of stuff, he can give you access to all of that. So
you have many other products, including a booster kit for regenerative medicine.
That's right.
Correct?
That's right. One of my favorites.
And I know that there's something you guys used for alertness as well, because I know when I'm doing my lectures and he's got his little display going, I walk out and he knows I want this. So they make me a little cup, they put it up, boom, it goes in my mouth, it's under my tongue for 90 seconds, and I go back in and start talking again. So I really appreciate your products. You guys have really thought these things out. And what a, this time that we're in now, if nothing can get people to change their viewpoint on lifestyle change and reasons for it, here's something that's going to come in and tap harder on anybody who's living this type of unhealthy lifestyle, which is a lot of us. This is going to be a wake-up call at minimum, and maybe worse for some people. So let's use this to educate our patients. Let's use this to help them get a healthier lifestyle and make some change, functional change in America, so that we don't have to go through this every year if these new novel viruses keep popping up. Like they're talking about a possible another wave from this happening in the fall. Have you heard that?
Yep.
Yeah, maybe not as bad as this one, but we may have to be dealing with this all over again. So, I mean, let's get ahead of this now the right way so we don't have that happen.
Right. Are you going to, like every year, are we going to quarantine 300 million people?
That's not a lifestyle that we could survive. Our country would fall apart based on that. So,
right.
Yeah.
So well,
some good logical science. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for explaining that. You have a knack for explaining it in a way that people can understand. So I'm sure we'll be doing more things together in the future, but thank you for being part of this. And for those of you listening, there's the contact information. Stay tuned tomorrow. Come back tomorrow night. We're going to have another session on what to do during this coronavirus. This is Dr. Mike Carberry with Dr. Brad Watts. Thank you for being part of this, and we'll see you next time.